Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Ukraine was this close to destroying another Russian ammunition depot, missile arsenal in Russia's Volgograd region, targeted in a Ukrainian drone attack. This depot reportedly housed missiles, ammunition, and explosives, to include those recently delivered Iranian ballistic missiles. This is what Ukraine was attempting to destroy. This occurred last night, and as of this morning, we really only have this video showing a fire in the distance. And unfortunately, based on the firm's data, the ammunition depot is not on fire. What is on fire is the farm fields surrounding the depot. So it's obvious that Russia's air defense systems did their job. Russia successfully shot down all these Ukrainian drones before they could hit the depot. And it was worth taking a shot. This was the most obvious military target inside of Russia. Going back in time 2 weeks ago, Russia had about 6 of these large ammunition depots, and Ukraine's already destroyed 3 of them. So the remaining 3, I'm sure, have doubled, tripled, or quadrupled their air defense systems. For fun, let me show you where this is located on the map. We can zoom out, and this is the Volgograd region. The town next to this depot, I think, is called Kotlubin. And yeah, that's a massive Russian ammunition depot that didn't explode last night. But there's always tomorrow night. Eventually, Ukraine's going to get them all. Let's now recap President Zelensky's week visiting the United States. And this was very productive. This was a very successful visit. Zelensky after U.S. visit, victory plan presented, all key issues on the partners' table. In a bid for continued U.S. backing for Ukraine, Zelensky held talks with Biden, Harris, and Trump. But because the UN General Assembly was meeting in New York this week, it was just very convenient for Zelensky to meet with lots of world leaders. So he met with members of Congress, he met with members of the UN General Assembly, but specifically had meetings with leaders of the UK, Vietnam, Paraguay, I think, Denmark, India, Italy, Canada, Germany. I'm not quite sure. That might be Paraguay, South Africa. We got Slovenia, Turkey, Finland, France, Japan, and then once again, members of NATO and the UN General Assembly. On top of that, like we said, he also met with President Biden. This is the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, as well as members in the House. He didn't meet with Speaker Johnson. That's really the only person he didn't meet with. And of course, met with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So within the span of about 6 days, Zelensky easily had 30 or 40 meetings. This was incredibly productive for Ukraine. U.S. shows great interest in Ukraine's victory plan, Zelensky's spokesperson claims. And I'm not going to agree with that. I think Zelensky talked up his victory plan, but his victory plan is basically give us more weapons and we can defeat the Russians. Lift all restrictions and we can defeat the Russians. If we can just get Russia in a losing position, then they'll sincerely negotiate and we can end this war. That doesn't really need to be classified. There were no specifics about what they're going to do and when, I think. That was the broad strokes of Zelensky's peace plan. But this is the headline that should have been dominating this week. This is a statement put out by Razom for Ukraine. This is the organization that advocates for Ukraine in Washington, D.C. And Zelensky got President Biden to announce $8 billion in additional military assistance for Ukraine. And part of this was under President Biden's drawdown authority of the Foreign Assistance Act. And this $5.6 billion presidential drawdown is the largest military aid package from the United States to Ukraine in the last 2.5 years. This week, This one $5.6 billion announcement was the largest military aid package from the United States to Ukraine. That's a victory. This is going to make an impact on the battlefield. On top of that, President Biden has finally changed his language. Here's the press release put out by the White House. And in the last sentence, this is why today I am announcing a surge in security assistance for Ukraine and a series of additional actions to help Ukraine win the war. Criticism that President Biden has received the last 2.5 years is he always uses different language, such as we want to help Ukraine defend itself, help Ukraine protect its sovereignty. But he didn't use the language help Ukraine win the war. So to drive this point home this morning, he did it again on Twitter. Ukraine will win this war, and the United States will continue to stand beside them every step of the way. So this is where in the comments section, people are going to get nasty and yell at the United States. Why won't you lift restrictions on the use of long-range weapons inside of Russia? The UK foreign minister says they're awaiting approval from the United States for Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory before this winter. Here's the reason. U.S. fears Moscow may retaliate if Ukraine strikes Russia with Western missiles. U.S. intelligence agencies worry that Ukrainian strikes on Russia with long-range weapons could retaliate with sabotage attacks in Europe and on U.S. military bases abroad. This is the argument that I made 2 weeks ago. The title of the video is Why America Will Not Allow ATACMS Strikes Inside Russia. This was only 2 weeks ago. All the information is the same. I'll link this video down below. But the short answer is I think President Biden is waiting until after November 5th. He wants to get through the November election to avoid a military provocation with Russia. Let's say the United States approves the use of ATACMS and storm shadows, and then Russian airfields 300 kilometers deep start exploding. Yeah, Russia, even if the United States doesn't give this approval, I still think Russia is seriously considering attacking a U.S. base to kill U.S. soldiers to help elect Donald Trump. If Russia, let's say, attacks a U.S. military base in Iraq, kills about 12 U.S. soldiers, what do you think Donald Trump is going to say and do? Do you think he's going to attack Putin? Do you think he's going to say anything critical of Russia when he hasn't the last 2.5 years? Donald Trump's response will be, U.S. soldiers are dying. We need to prevent World War III. We have to cut off all military support for Ukraine and elect me president, because I am good friends with Vladimir Putin, and I'm the only one that can avoid a direct war with the Russians. I know this is infuriating. It's infuriating for everybody in America, but we are having an election in 35 days. After 35 days, we'll know more. We can plan longer, deeper in advance, and potentially get these restrictions lifted. This is my theory. On November 6th, if the restrictions are not lifted, I'll be joining you guys in being very critical of whoever the president-elect is and President Biden for not lifting the restrictions. All gas, no brakes, 35 days to go, let's do it. So now we have to talk about Trump, and this is his favorite thing. Trump emphasizes relationships with Putin and Zelensky during New York meeting with Ukrainian president. Trump meets with Zelensky, says his views on ending the war as soon as possible have not changed. So the day before Trump met with Zelensky, he was still saying he wasn't going to meet with him. And at a rally in Georgia, this is what he was saying about Ukraine, and this is what he was saying about Zelensky. I'm going to replay this clip.
Biden and Kamala got us into this war in Ukraine, and now they can't get us out. They can't get us out. I watched him. We will. He's been saying that for 3 years. Every time Zelensky.
So Trump says it's Biden's fault that Putin invaded Ukraine, and Biden can't get us, the United States, out of the war. The United States is not directly involved in this war. U.S. soldiers are not fighting in Ukraine.
Zelensky comes to the United States, he walks away with $100 billion. I think he's the greatest salesman on earth. But we're stuck in that war unless I'm president.
He says Zelensky is the greatest salesman in history. Every time he visits the United States, he walks away with a check for $100 billion. It's at this point Trump's supporters start booing President Zelensky at his rally.
I'll get it done. I'll get it negotiated. I'll get out. We got to get out. Biden says, we will not leave until we win. What happens if they win? That's what they do, is they fight wars. As somebody told me the other day, they beat Hitler, they beat Napoleon. That's what they do, they fight. And it's not pleasant, but, you know, we've given them close to $300 billion. And you know what? Europe...
That's a lie. We have not given Ukraine $300 billion. It's just over $150 billion at the moment.
Has given them, which is approximately our size when you add up the countries together, their economy, it's very close to our size. They've given them like a small fraction of that number, just a small, very small fraction.
Trump repeats the lie that Europeans and our NATO partners are all losers and deadbeats. They're not paying their fair share when, once again, this is a lie. The Europeans have provided significantly more military, financial, and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So Trump was not going to meet with Zelensky. He was refusing, and then Zelensky met with Kamala Harris. This made the news here in the United States, and all of a sudden Trump changed his mind and was willing to fly to New York to meet with Zelensky at Trump Tower. So there's two video clips. This is the first video clip before the meeting. And yes, I'm going to play a little bit of this clip.
A meeting, and we have a big race going on right now. I guess 37 days left, and we're leading in the polls, and so we'll see how it all works out. Hopefully it'll work out, but if it does, we're going to work very much with both parties to try and get this settled and get it worked out. It has to end at some point. It has to end. He's going through hell, and this country has gone through hell like few countries have ever. Like it's happened anywhere. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It's a terrible situation, and
He's gone through hell. It's a terrible situation. Trump is speaking like Ukraine has gone through an earthquake. He refuses to say anything critical about Vladimir Putin or the Russians. He's not said one negative thing the last 2.5 years, only positive things about Putin and the Russians.
I will say I have had a great relationship. It was very honorable. I don't even know if you know this, but when they did the impeachment hoax, it was a hoax, just a Democrat hoax, which we won. But one of the reasons we won it so easily is that when the president was asked, it was over a phone call with the president, and he said he could have grandstanded and played cute, but he didn't do that. He said, President Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. He said it loud and clear, and the impeachment hoax died right there. He could have said, well, I don't know. And I never even told you this, to be honest, but he was like a piece of steel. He said President Trump did nothing wrong.
Trump can't go longer than 30 seconds without making everything about himself, so he's bringing up his 2019 impeachment, when on the phone he threatened to withhold military aid to Ukraine unless President Zelensky opened a criminal investigation of Joe Biden's son. He was trying to get Ukraine to interfere in the 2020 election. That's why Trump was impeached.
We had a very nice call. He congratulated me on his victory. It just won. And I remember that. He could have played cute, and he didn't play cute. So I appreciated that. So we have a very good relationship. And I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
more good relations.
We're going to, I see. Yeah,
You
but,
think
but, you know, it takes two to tango, you know, and we will.
So that's Trump saying, I have good relations with Zelensky and I have good relations with Vladimir Putin, who I want to remind everyone is an internationally wanted war criminal. Zelensky then jumps in saying, I hope you have better relations with me. Trump then laughs and says, it takes two to tango. Okay. So that was before. This is the Q&A they did with the media after. And, I mean, Zelensky's face, he could not look any more annoyed at having to listen to this guy talk about himself incessantly. But this is what Trump said after the meeting.
He wants it to end, and he wants it to end as quickly as possible. He wants a fair transaction to take place. And I think, I mean, right now I'm campaigning. So right now I don't have much to do with it other than we're doing very well in terms of the campaign. And I've been saying that I believe if I win, we're going to have a very fair and I think actually rather rapid deal. It should stop, and the president wants it to stop, and I'm sure President Putin wants it to stop.
So that's Trump saying that Vladimir Putin wants to stop this war. You don't blow up children's hospitals if you want to stop the war. The war could stop at any moment if the Russians just go back to their own country and stay there. The only way that Trump can make this war stop in a day is if Trump just gives the Russians everything they want. All sanctions lifted, all territory that Russia has taken, they can keep forever. All the children and people that Russia has stolen, they can keep forever. And there's no reparations, there's no accountability. Russia just gets to return back to the global order like nothing happened. That's what Russia wants, and that's what Trump is offering.
And that's a good combination. So we want to have a fair deal for everybody.
What do you envision as fair?
Well, it's too early to say that. I mean,
What do you envision as a fair deal? It's too early to say that. Okay. So these are the only two pictures you need to look at. If you're an American voter who cares about Ukraine, here's Vice President Kamala Harris meeting with Zelensky this week. And here's Trump meeting with President Zelensky a day later. Which of these two photos indicates that the person is listening, cares, has a plan, wants to help Ukraine, wants to defend democracy and human rights around the world? And if you think I'm cherry-picking this photo because Trump had to set this up quickly or whatever, here's a photo of Donald Trump meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister 2 months ago. By the way, this is foreign election interference, having a foreign head of state meeting with Trump, who's a private citizen. Trump is not a member of the government. Yet we've got the flag up, we've got glasses of water, we've got notes on the table. And for this picture, this meeting, Trump could not telegraph to the world anymore. He could care less about Ukraine and what happens to their people. Elections in 35 days, and then I'll be able to stop talking about US politics finally. So let's check in with the Russians and what insane things are they doing. Weatherman Yevgeny Tishkovets delivers a nuclear weather report. This is what the Russians are doing now to the point of absurdity. They're now giving nuclear war weather forecasts on Kremlin state TV. This is what this looks like. Jokes are over. Russia's nuclear doctrine was updated. The Supreme Commander-in-Chief sent a clear signal to those who actively call for strikes deep within Russia using NATO's potential. In case someone didn't understand, Russia reserves the right to respond by nuclear means to any critical threat, even with conventional weapons. If this happens, it will be hell to pay for everyone. To sober up our foes, we'll remind them of the consequences if a provocation takes place in the near future. Meteorological conditions will be favorable to us to carry out nuclear strikes against our adversaries. Despite the prevailing Western-Eastern movement of the air masses, In October, the meteorological winds will change their direction from westward to eastward. This means the air mass will not be moving towards us, but towards Europe. The radioactive clouds need only 2 weeks to spread across the northern hemisphere. In 2 months, they will cover the southern hemisphere as well as a result of a nuclear strike. In the event any YouTube censors are watching this video, this is a simulation of an explosion, not a real explosion, of course, but for the YouTube censors. As a result of a nuclear strike, more than 200 million tons of aerosol will be released into the atmosphere. About 1/3 of it is carbon. One of the characteristics of this element is its ability to absorb sunlight due to its intense black coloring. As a result, giant areas of our planet will be plunged into darkness for up to 95% for at least several weeks. The twilight will remain on Earth for about 1 year. Global temperatures will fall catastrophically by 20 to 30 degrees Celsius on average. A nuclear fall will last for about 3 post-war years. Global temperatures will rapidly fall by more than 1 degree Celsius per year. It will reach the lowest levels by years 4 and 5. Earth will experience an ice age. According to some calculations, nuclear winter will last for decades. The tropics will experience an unprecedented thermal shock. Photosynthesis in plants will completely stop. In fact, they will perish. More than 5 billion people may die of hunger, including 99% of the population of the US and Europe. So that is Russia's weather forecast on Kremlin State TV. If you don't let us win this war, 99% of Americans and 99% of Europeans will be dead. But the winds in October are favorable for Russia, so Russia will be fine. Where do I begin? So, because of the Coriolis effect, the Earth spins, the winds between about 0 and 30 degrees, let's see here, latitude go from east to west, but between 30 degrees and 60 degrees in the northern hemisphere, this is most of Russia, the winds always blow east. If Russia nukes Ukraine, the winds are always going to be blowing east. My head hurts, guys. It just hurts. Let's get to the bad news for Russia. Russian colonel, head of a drone center, eliminated by a special ops mission near Moscow. I guess this was Ukrainian spies or something inside of Russia that successfully eliminated this colonel. Explosions damage a railway bridge in the Samara Oblast, according to Russian media. We actually do have the video. Somebody planted explosives under this rail bridge, and as soon as the train went over it, the bomb went off. Unfortunately, the bomb wasn't powerful enough to bring down the bridge, but there is structural damage. I don't think it's safe for trains to travel over this until the repairs are made, but somebody's been sabotaging the rail lines, and they're now going after the bridges in Russia's rail network. Deaths from Russian service station blasts rise to 13. I don't think Ukraine had anything to do with this. This was not a Ukrainian drone strike. But for some reason, a Russian gas station blew up, and I don't think that's supposed to happen. There are videos online. I'll link them down below if you want to see them for yourself. A Russian lieutenant colonel with the Pacific Fleet died while running a marathon. That's weird. That shouldn't happen, but apparently he was running a marathon in Vladivostok and he collapsed and died. Gazprom drops from Russia's most profitable company to outside the Forbes top 100 list. Russia's energy giants no longer operate at a profit. Doesn't mean they're going to go bankrupt anytime soon. Lots of American companies don't operate at a profit for years before the negative consequences catch up with them. But there's no profits, there's no surplus to be given to Putin's government to help them fight this war. Gazprom will never return to profitability until sanctions are lifted and trade relations normalize. Some 500 scientists to be impacted when the Europe lab CERN officially cuts ties with Russia. Europe's major physics lab, CERN, situated on the Swiss-French border, is ending its cooperation with Russian and Belarusian scientists. This is the correct move, and this really should have been done 2 years ago. If these scientists from Russia and Belarus can't do their research in the civilized world, then they're going to leave Russia. If they can get a visa or citizenship in a different country, they will go in order to continue their research. This is what these people have dedicated their lives to, and if we can get these scientists out of Russia and Belarus, this is a victory for the West. Russia may soon block Discord. I don't use the service of Discord, but I know it's incredibly popular. People use it for direct messaging and sharing files, but more and more, Russia's just going to close down the internet in order to control their people and allow Putin to stay in power. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Lithuania delivers ammunition and other support to Ukraine in its latest military aid package, a military aid package that includes ammunition, computers, and logistical supplies arrived this week. Thank you so much, the people of Lithuania. Netherlands retires their F-16 fighters and readies them for Ukraine. They had a send-off for their F-16s. The Netherlands is upgrading to F-35s, and this was officially their last flight before they're readied for transfer to Ukraine. They should be arriving before the end of this year. Last video I want to share with you, I got this message from Zarina Zabriskie. I've shared several of her videos here on the channel, and I just want to read what she sent me this morning. Hi Jake, here is a cry for help. Kherson is being destroyed by drone attacks, and people are being killed hourly and daily. Here is what's going on up to a dozen times a day. There is silence around the drone attacks. It needs to be heard. Any help is much appreciated. Unfortunately for the city of Kherson, it's just too close to the Russians. There are Russians on the other side of the river, and what they've been doing intensively the last couple months or so is just drone dropping grenades on random civilians in any car that moves. Any civilian car that moves, any person walking down a street in the city of Kherson is being attacked by Russian drones currently. Zarina has been covering this story in the city of Kherson, and locals have to carry weapons with them. They have to carry shotguns and rifles. So if they hear or see a drone, they immediately start firing on it in the sky. Here is Zarina reporting on locals in Kherson attempting to shoot down Russian drones.
These were guns taking down the drones. This is going to a drugstore to get some toothpaste. Вы видели?
Ну да.
Да? И сами дрон видели? Жужжал?
Да, конечно.
Моего друга сегодня попала в его машину
был скид с дрона, и он пострадал очень сильно, серьезно пострадала машина, и он сам пострадал. И мой друг тоже пострадал с другой машиной. Это было в субботу возле новой почты, тоже пострадал с машиной. И реально я уже сейчас боюсь выходить из дома, потому что везде летают дроны, они везде охотятся за людьми, и это очень страшно. Много смертей и горя.
This is no way to live. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.